The autumn wind is a pirate, blustering in from sea. With a rollicking song, he sweeps along, swaggering boisterously. His face is weather-beaten. He wears a hooded sash, with a silver hat about his head, and a bristling black mustache. He growls as he storms the country, a villain big and bold. And the trees all shake and quiver and quake as he robs them of their gold. The autumn wind is a raider, pillaging just for fun. He'll knock you round and upside down and laugh when he's conquered and won.
Raider Nation, the season is on the horizon, and we're going to be going game by game and giving you our final schedule predictions for 2024. So starting off hot, week 1, we're in Allegiant Stadium West in Los Angeles, playing our hated rival, the Los Angeles Chargers. And, we've struggled at SoFi before. That's no secret. We haven't won there, in fact, when there's been fans there. But the Chargers, we were talking about this earlier, their roster is depleted. It's Jim Harbaugh's first game. Typically, there's some rust when a coach like that comes back to the NFL. And so I think we're going to have us giving a win to the Raiders in week 1 against the Chargers. So starting off 1-0.
All right, 1-0, moving east now. Week 2 at the Baltimore Ravens. This is going to be a tough game. I think the Ravens are going to, start the season strong in Kansas City. Kansas City might have a little bit of Super Bowl hangover, so they might, have a close game there. However, I don't think they pick up the win in week 1, which means in week 2, how many times we've seen it, team coming off hungry, like last year, the Buffalo Bills lost to the Jets in week 1, and then week 2 came out and obliterated the Raiders. So we're gonna go ahead and give the Baltimore Ravens the win here, and that makes our schedule a little bit tougher moving on, coming in at 1-1.
Yeah, so 1-1 now, moving into week 3 against the Carolina Panthers. Typically, this is a game where I think it would be a trap game. You're going up against an inferior opponent like the Panthers, but I think under Antonio Pierce, it's early in the season, so our guys are going to be focused after a loss. I have this as a blowout win for the Raiders. Carolina, their quarterback, Bryce Young, was terrible last season, and I don't expect big things from him this season. Their head coach is unproven in Dave Canales. A lot of question marks there. Defense is not bad, so, hopefully Gardner Minshew can stay protected in the pocket, but that's the only concern. I think if Gardner Minshew can just stay upright, we're going to blow out the Carolina Panthers. So 2-1 after week 3.
2-1 going into week 4. Raiders never get a blowout win, so I don't know where that came from. But, week 4, Cleveland Browns, Deshaun Watson visiting all the massage parlors in Las Vegas. However, here we have the Cleveland Browns getting the win on the road. I think the Browns are just a tougher team than us, and they have better quarterback play with Deshaun Watson. I think, Amari Cooper is going to come out and make some plays. However, I do think Jack Jones will match up well against him. But I think overall it's going to be a close contest. But I'd give it to the Browns in some sort of 1916, 2017 game where the Raiders are out to the lead first. However, as we usually do, come stumbling down the stretch.
Yeah, I think that game has the potential to be a scrap fest. So definitely going to be a low-scoring game with 2 good defenses. So moving on to week 5, we're 2-2 at this point. We both have us beating the Denver Broncos in Denver. They have never beaten us since we've relocated to Las Vegas, and we don't see that changing in week 5. Denver, Bo Nix has looked decent in preseason, but early on in the season, I think it's going to be tougher for him to produce against a good defense like the Raiders. And, I think their defense is not as good. Their defensive line has gotten worse and worse. So I think their defense is depleted. I think we're going to win in Denver pretty handily. So 3-2 at this point.
Moving on to week 6, we got the Steelers at home for the second year in a row. However, this time is a little bit different. As we heard Sam mention on the podcast just a few days ago, Arthur Smith offense, Russell Wilson at quarterback. I have no doubt in my mind that the Las Vegas Raiders are finally going to get a win at home against the Pittsburgh Steelers, moving our overall record to 4-2. Arthur Smith, Russell Wilson, they speak for themselves.
Yep, I think that's definitely a winnable game. So moving on to week 7, we got going back to SoFi, playing the Rams this time. The Rams, I think it's plain and simple. They have a better head coach and a better quarterback than us. Stafford and McVay are a pretty elite combo at that position. I know they lost Aaron Donald, which is a pretty big loss for them, but they still have a pretty stacked roster top to bottom. So I think that's going to be a tough game. We have us losing this game. We're going to be going to 4-3 after week 7.
Yeah, I think in a dream world, the Raiders pick up both wins in their second home, SoFi Stadium. However, I think this game is also going to be one of those scrap fest games, not very high scoring, but in the end, Matthew Stafford will outplay Gardner Minshew, or at that point, it could be Aiden O'Connell. Who knows who's going to be the quarterback for the Raiders for this upcoming season, week by week. But moving on to week 8, Kansas City Chiefs at home. We have not beaten the Chiefs at home in God knows how long. We've never beaten them at Allegiant. They call Allegiant Stadium their home out west, and that's not going to change. They just won the Super Bowl there. They're going to be hungry. The locker room is still going to smell like champagne, and I think the Kansas City Chiefs are going to come out and, embarrass us. Last year, we had a 14-0 lead against them. Daniel Carlson missed a 40-yard field goal to put us up 17-0 going into the break. 2 minutes left in the half. Kansas City scores 3 touchdowns, and they're up 21-14 going into half. So that's just typical Raider BS. And I think this game goes to Kansas City here in week 8.
Yeah, so now we're at 500. We're 4-4 after week 8. Now another tough game. NFL did us no favors with this schedule. Going to Cincinnati, 10 o'clock kickoff game on the West Coast. And, Cincinnati's a tough place to play. We saw that in our playoff game a few years ago. Their fans are going to come out. I think Joe Burrow is due for a monster season coming off his injury last season. So I think this is going to be a really tough game to play against an elite quarterback. And this is going to be another loss, unfortunately, pushing our record down to 4-5 heading into the bye.
Yeah. So bye week, we get a later bye this week at week 10. Moving on to week 11, we are going to the Miami Dolphins for the second season in a row. Last year was Aiden O'Connell's third game, I believe, after getting 2 wins over the New York teams. We head to South Beach. It was humid. It was muggy. It was overcast. And it came down to the wire. It really came down to the wire. But we had an inability to get a first down in that game until very late, where we had to make a comeback. And then going down the stretch, Aiden O'Connell's pass was intercepted, a ball that hit the ground. Jalen Ramsey's interception hit the ground on that play, and they ruled it an interception. They gave Miami the win. It was BS. So a little bit of vengeance here. We think the Raiders are going to get the win here, November 17th in Miami, Florida, the 10 a.m. kickoff window. And the Raiders are going to get the win here in a scrap fest game. Another one of those scrap fest games. We're going to see a lot of scrap fest games because that's how Gardner Minshew is. Gardner Minshew is a scrappy player. And that's how the games are going to turn out for the Raiders, especially on the offensive end. And if we have the ability to score over 20 points a game, that's what's going to really push us over the edge and hopefully help us win some of these narrow games. However, this schedule prediction is based off the Raiders balling out under Luke's offense and being able to score more than 20 points a game.
Yeah, so definitely you're right there. Moving on to week 12, we got the Denver Broncos at home. I don't even remember the last time we've lost to them at home. I think you can chalk this up for the same reasons I mentioned in week 5 that we're going to beat them. I think this is a gimme game for the Raiders. This could be a trap game if our guys lose focus after a big win in South Beach. Hopefully they don't party too much in Miami. But I think if we're focused, I think we easily get this win against the Broncos. That moves us to 6-5 on the season.
6-5, going to Kansas City on the short week on Black Friday. This is a game where last year, obviously, everyone around the world saw on live television what the Raiders did to Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City and got the win on Christmas Day, having a Jack Jones pick 6 and another, I think it was Neil Farrell Jr. or Bilal Nichols, who had the fumble return for the touchdown. So coming back to Kansas City after that heroic win last year, it's going to be tough. I think this year things are a little more difficult, and I think that the Kansas City Chiefs are going to pick up the win in this game.
Okay, so moving on to week 14, we got us going to Tampa Bay, 10 a.m. kickoff game, and we've seen it the past few seasons, unfortunately. The Raiders, there's a game they should win, and they always end up losing. A few years ago, it was against the Falcons. Then it was against the Saints, where we just get absolutely blown out in a 10 a.m. kickoff against a Southern or Eastern team. And I think this could happen again against Tampa Bay. I think we have a better roster than them, but Baker Mayfield's, I would say he's a better quarterback than Gardner Minshew. He's proven more. And I could see us just laying an egg in Tampa Bay. This is a quintessential trap game that we always lose as Raider fans. And so that moves us down to 6-7 on the year. That's going to be a big loss, we're predicting.
Now, week 15. Well, the Raiders have not had their first primetime game this late into a season since probably the last 10 or 15 years it's been. And what does that tell you? They give us a primetime game, the only primetime game on our schedule to give it in week 15. That tells us that there is little to no confidence. As we saw with the rankings that just came out, CBS has us ranked at 31 going into this year, which is pretty surprising, but not that surprising. Looking at it now, we got the Falcons at home, right? Monday Night Football. Who knows who's going to be the Falcons quarterback going into this game? Kirk Cousins coming off the Achilles. Who knows if he can stay healthy? The man is 35 years old. Then after that, you got Michael Penix Jr. They robbed us of him. So we're going to go ahead and say the Raiders are going to get the win here just because we're not sure who's going to be the Atlanta quarterback. The Atlanta defense is nice, but I think it'll be another gritty game that Gardner Minshew pulls out in primetime under the lights in Las Vegas in a stadium full of Falcons fans.
Yeah, so after the win versus Atlanta, we're going to have Jacksonville at home. We're going to be hosting them. And as much as I want to give us the win here, as Raider fans, it's a tough pill to swallow, but I think they're just more talented than we are. Doug Peterson's a really good head coach. I was the one pounding the table for us to hire him when we'd hired Josh McDaniels. And so, look, Trevor Lawrence, he came off a bad season last year, but he was hurt last season. He's going to be healthy, and I think he's a pretty good quarterback. So it's going to be a tough game to play Jacksonville. Their fans are going to, of course, take over Allegiant Stadium. That's going to be a really disappointing loss. It's hard because I want to give us all these wins against these like teams that we're similar to, but the reality is you're going to lose some of those games. So we're going to have us losing to Jacksonville, moving us to 7-8 on the season.
Now, week 17, the moment the Raider fans have been waiting for. Derek Carr's vengeance game against the Raiders, which is not going to happen. We have the Raiders picking up the win in New Orleans because the one thing we've learned as Raider fans over the past 10 years, you send blitz at Derek Carr and he will panic. He will throw interceptions. He will take sacks. He will fumble. And Derek Carr has not changed. He is the same man. Even though they went 9-8 last year, he is still the same Derek Carr. And the Raiders are going to send pressure. Christian Wilkins is going to get him. Max Crosby is going to get him. Kuntz is going to get him. And they're going to get him down to the ground. That's a win. 8-8 for the Raiders going into week 18 against the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, and this is a game, this is a spot we've typically split with the Chargers. I think the past like 5-6 years, we've split with them every year, but this is not the same Chargers team. Their roster, like I mentioned before, is depleted. I know Justin Herbert's a great quarterback, but the rest of their roster is just not the same as it once was when they had Telesco as their general manager. So I think if we're gonna sweep the Chargers this year for the first time in quite a while, I think since 2016. So I think this is a year we get it done and we go 9-8. I don't know if that's going to be good enough for the playoffs. I don't think so, considering the AFC is really competitive with a lot of young star quarterbacks, which we do not have, which is going to set us back this season. So 9-8, it's progress from last season. We're improving on our record under Antonio Pierce. So hopefully, I think this is a pretty realistic projection. And we've seen some people project us 13, 14 wins, which isn't going to happen. Also, some like CBS and all those power rankings giving us 4 or 5 wins, which also isn't going to happen. So I think 9 wins, good benchmark for our season. I think this is definitely possible. And if the quarterbacks play well, I think we could easily see something a little better than this even. But Raider Nation, we appreciate the support on our channel. Continue liking the videos, leaving comments down below, sharing with your friends, and most importantly, subscribe to the page below. We're trying to hit that 1,000 mark for monetization. It's completely free, and it helps us go a long way in growing our channel and connecting more with you guys and Raider Nation. So till next time, Raider Nation, we'll catch you later.